All right, let's get practicing in QuickBooks Online. Grab the link below in the description so that you can follow along. All right, here we are in the QBO Gym. And the QBO Gym is a place where we have numerous hands-on exercises that simulate real-life scenarios that you may encounter as a bookkeeper. We come out with new exercises each month and break it down for you into 4 different sections. Today, we are working in the March Year 1 Strength Training section where we're really focusing on that project tracking. At the top here is an animated video to give you a synopsis of what is going on in Craig's world this month. He is our fictitious business owner. Further down is an interactive pre-assessment quiz. Below that are all of the exercises in this section. And at the bottom here is an optional area where after you have completed all of the exercises in this section, we do have some sample posts that you can use on your LinkedIn to share with everybody what you have learned so far. So let's get started with today's exercise where we're going to track expenses for the Finch-Crawford wedding. Go ahead and click on that link to have the exercise pulled up for you. I have it over here on the right side of my screen, so let's read through our scenario. Even though it was a larger project, Craig decided to assign his newer employee, John Johnson, to lead up the project. Not only would this give John experience, but since Emily cost him more, he thought he could save money and increase his profit margin. You will need to be in the sample company, the same session of the sample company that you did the previous exercise in. If you have not completed that one yet, go ahead and click on the link on the top right corner of your screen. That'll take you to that exercise, complete that one, and then come back to this one. They all build on each other, so it's really important to start with that first one. I have the sample company over here on the left side of my screen. This is the last page that I left off of from the previous exercise. So let's go ahead and get started with the exercise. John stopped by Norton Lumber and Building Materials for the lights and rocks. The lights cost $152 and the rocks cost $756. He used the company MasterCard to pay for them. He then headed over to the wedding venue for the installation. As he was setting up the lights, however, Whitney showed him another area that needed to be lit. He would have to get at least twice as many lights, maybe even more. John called Craig for approval, and after talking with Whitney, Craig agreed to let John go pick up another set and charge back both the cost of the second set of lights as well as John's time picking them up and installing them. Whitney agreed to a billable rate for John of $45 per hour. That is what Whitney is going to be paying for John's time. The second set of lights cost $178, and John spent a total of 6 hours on the installation, about half of his time for each set of the lights. He also did the trimming, which took about 3 hours. So let's walk through how to account for all of this activity that we just talked about. The first part here is about Norton Lumber and Building Materials. So John went to Norton 2 times, so we'll need to create 2 transactions. So the first one that we're going to record the first one first, and then we're going to record the second one. So we're going to click on the plus new button and then select expense. The plus new button is on the top left corner of the screen. Go ahead and click on that, and then under vendors, select expense. Once this comes up for us, we're going to fill it out. So in the payee field, we want to select Norton Lumber and Building Materials. So click into that payee field. You can either scroll or start typing in Norton. Once you get their name, go ahead and select it. Now you'll notice that as soon as you select the payee, that there was something that came up here on this drawer. If you have not paid Craig's bill in the current session of the sample company, you will get the pop-up that a bill is due. We're not going to be adding it at this time, so you can just ignore it. But just know that that's what that is on the right-hand side. Let's continue filling out the expense transaction. So in the payment account field, we're going to select MasterCard. So click that down arrow in this field and then select MasterCard because that is how he paid for all of the materials. Now, because Craig does not track lighting nor rocks as individual products, you will use the category grid, not the items grid, to indicate what John purchased. So there is this category details grid and item details grid, which is currently collapsed. This is the one we are going to use because these are not inventory items that he is tracking. These items are not billable back to Whitney because they were already in the initial invoice that we created in the previous exercise. But you will need to make sure that Finch-Crawford wedding is indicated in the customer project field right here. So that's a lot of information. Let's go ahead and fill it out step by step. So in the category field, we're going to select fountain and garden lighting. Now, as a really important note here, make sure you select the expense account, not the income account. The expense should be the first one. And as a note here, fountain, the word fountain is singular, not plural. So let's go ahead and click into this. If you start typing in fountain, you will see two are appearing. One is the expense account, one is the income account. We want the expense account, and fountain is not plural. It doesn't have an S at the end of it. In a real life scenario, if you have similarly named accounts, it would be highly recommended to change that because it is very easy if you're going through things quickly to click on the wrong one. So if you have similarly named accounts, highly recommend renaming them. So here is the one we want. Go ahead and click on it. In the description field, we're going to type lighting. So click into that description field, type lighting. The amount for it was $152. So in the amount field, let's go ahead and type that. 152. Oh, I said 153. 152. Once again, this is not being billed, so do not click this. We are just going to assign this to the Finch-Crawford wedding project. So in that field, we're going to select their name. I'm going to collapse this so that you can see my screen a little bit better. So click into it. You can scroll down or you can start typing in Finch. If you scroll, it'll be on the bottom. You will see it here. It's kind of like a sub customer of Wedding Planning by Whitney, or it looks like it. It's just the project that's associated with her. And so that's why it's slightly indented and down here. So go ahead and click on it once you find it. Now let's go ahead and add the rest of it for the rocks. In the category field on the second line, we're going to select job materials. So click into that. You can use the down arrow and scroll down. I'm going to do that. You can see job expenses, job materials, and there's that fountain garden lighting. This is the one we want, so go ahead and click on that. And then in the description field, let's put rocks so we know what this is for. So click into that description field, type rocks. And once again, let's go ahead and add the amount. So in the amount field, we're going to type 756. Click into that box, type 756. And then in the customer project field, let's once again select Finch-Crawford wedding. So click that down arrow. I'm going to type this time Finch to get Finch-Crawford wedding. And you will see that once we have clicked it out of that amount box, that QBO has automatically updated the amount. That 152 plus 756 has been added right there. So we are going to click on the black save button, not save and close, because we have a second expense that is very similar. So we're just going to make a copy of it, but we have to save this one first. So click on the black save button right here. And you will notice that as soon as we did that, the expense has been saved. There has been something down here that has been added since we have saved it. It is this more. We want to click on more. And then we're going to click on copy. So click on copy right here. And now you will see all of the information that we just had on that invoice or that expense has now showed up right here. So let's go ahead and fill it all out. As a note here, I didn't mention it before, but as a note here, in a real life scenario, in this payment date, you want to make sure that it is matching when the expense was actually made. For the purposes of this exercise, we're just going to let it to default to today's date. So just keep that in mind that dates are really important. So when you are doing this in a real life scenario, you want to make sure that payment date is matching the expense. So let's make the adjustments on this right here. I'm going to collapse this once again. It showed up for us again. So the lighting, in that lighting line, we are going to type 178. So click into that amount box and change this to 178. Now this one is going to be marked as billable because this was not included in the original invoice. So in the billable field, let's click on the checkbox right there. We can leave the project name there because it is still for the same project. It's still for the same wedding. Let's adjust the rocks line by deleting it. We don't actually need that because it was not part of that second expense. So click on the trash can icon right on this rocks line, and then you will see the total expenses now showing as just $178. So we are all good with this expense. We have now created both of them, so we just can click on Save and Close. It's the green button on the bottom right corner of the sample company. And now that expense has been saved, and you will see that the cost has now been added to the project. Next, we need to account for John's time. Now, he spent 6 total hours on the project, but 3 of them were billable back to Whitney because it was the 3 extra that he was doing to add in those lights. And he also spent 3 hours on the trimming. So even though they were on the same day, we need to use a weekly timesheet for this. We need to break it all out. So to get that weekly timesheet pulled up, we need to click on the plus new button and then select weekly timesheet. So that is up here on the top left corner, click on plus new, and then under team, select weekly timesheet. We need to change this to John. So in the employee dropdown, select John Johnson. That is right here. Click on that down arrow and you will notice that he is the second one here. Go ahead and click on that. In the customer project field, we want to select Finch-Crawford Wedding. So click that down arrow here in this first section. You can scroll or you can type in their name. Either one is fine. Go ahead and click on it once you find it. In the service field, we want to select installation since that's what it's for. So click on the down arrow right here and you will see installation listed just a couple down. So go ahead and select that. This is going to be billed back to Whitney, so we need to click on the checkbox next to billable hour, and then in the rate field, type 45 because that's what they agreed on. So click on that checkbox right there, and as soon as you do, you will notice that this box has now showed up. So delete what is currently there and type 45. It's not taxable, so we don't have to click that box. You can leave that unchecked. In the Monday field, we want to type 3. So click into that box right there and type a 3. And as a note here, you will see probably different numbers on the top than what I have right here. The sample company is always changing dates. And so it's just rotating through dates. Don't worry about the actual date itself. Just make sure that the 3 is in the Monday box. Now let's fill out for the rest of the installation. So in the second section in the customer project field, we're going to select Finch-Crawford Wedding. So in this second section, go ahead and click that down arrow. You can either type or scroll until you find their name. Once you find it, go ahead and click on it. Let's put in the service field that it was for installation. So click that down arrow and then select installation. And then in the Monday field, we're going to type 3. So click into that box right there and type a 3. All right, so we are done here. Again, this is not being billed back to Whitney because this was included in the original invoice. So we need to now add the trimming. So in that third section in the customer project field, we're going to select Finch-Crawford Wedding. So one more time here. So click that down arrow. You can either scroll all the way to the bottom or type in their name. Once you find it, go ahead and click on it. Sorry, that information popped up because I hovered over that I. So in the service field, you want to select trimming. So click that down arrow in the service field. You can either scroll until you find it all the way at the bottom, or you can type it in. Once you find it, go ahead and click on it. And then in the Monday field, we're going to once again type 3. So click into that box, that Monday box, click 3. This is not billable because once again, this was included in the original invoice. So we are all done here. We just need to click on the down arrow next to Save and New to select Save and Close. So the down arrow is right here on that green button. Click on that and then select Save and Close. And now his time has been recorded and has updated now in the project itself. Now that we have recorded all of the expenses, it's time to charge Whitney for the work outside of that initial invoice. So we're going to click on the plus new button and then click on invoice. The plus new button up here, click on that, and then under customers, select invoice. Now, even though the invoice is going to Whitney, it still needs to be recorded for the specific project. So in the customer field, let's select Finch-Crawford wedding. So click on that down arrow. You can either scroll to the bottom or you can type it in. Once you find it, go ahead and click on Finch-Crawford wedding. Now note that the billable time and billable expenses that you previously recorded for John earlier on in this exercise has now popped up in the drawer on the right-hand side. So we want to add all of these to the invoice because this is that second invoice that we are sending to Whitney. So click on the Add All to add all of the expenses to the invoice. Click on that. And now they have all been moved over here, which is great because this just makes your life so much easier. It's one less thing, one less step to have to fill out everything. Notice that no product or service will be assigned to lighting. So here you can see the installation, but there's nothing here for the lighting. Now this is because we use the category grid, not the items grid when we created the expense. It's not a product that is typically bought and sold, and you can save this without it you can save this without it. And because QBO knows this came from a billable charge, it will categorize it to billable expense income, which will offset the expense in the reports. So that is why it is not showing here. Lighting is not something that's tracked, and so it is not actually a product service that is set up in QBO. So there is nothing that is showing right here. That is why it is saying that. So we're just going to save and close it. Once again, in real life, you could save and send this so it goes directly to Whitney. But since we can't actually send it, we're just going to click on Save and Close. That's the green button on the bottom right corner. Go ahead and click on that. Now that one has been saved. Our dashboard has once again updated, and you're now finished with the Finch-Crawford wedding. Now we're going to take a look at what happened with the Wilson-Ford wedding in the next exercise, and that is it. That is how you would track the project or track the expenses for the one project. And if you have any questions or want to know more about the QBO Gym, just click on the link below in the description. Be sure to leave this session of the sample company open as you will need it for the next exercise in the strength training section where we track the expenses for the other wedding, the Wilson-Ford wedding. And I will see you in the next video.